Hi, so welcome to the class of today. We want to look at literature review. The course is HNS 307 research method, and it is meant for BSc level 3. And my name is Dr. Lucy KVTB Talk. What are the objectives of today? We want to ensure that at the end of the session, we will be able to describe the reasons for reviewing available literature and other information during presentation of your research proposals or during the write-up of your research proposals. We want to describe the sources that are available for carrying out such review. We want to apply the PICO in literature review. Remember, we apply the PICO in problem statement. So we want to take it further and look at how we apply the same in literature review. We also want to develop a data collection template and to be able to see how steps taken to prepare a review of literature and other information pertaining to the research proposal. So what is literature review or survey? And I want to believe that last week we familiarized ourselves with the Harvard referencing manual. We also familiarized ourselves with the reference softwares such as Mendeley and Zotero. We also give you a link into the training by University of Nairobi on Zotero. Please make use of those resources. All of them actually will enrich your understanding of research methods. So, what is literature review? So, what is literature review? Literature review or survey has been defined as a documentation of relevant studies which have been done in an area of interest, citing the author and the year of study. It has also been defined as a clear and logical presentation of the relevant research work done so far in the area of investigation. Why do we do literature review? I'm sure as you found in the manual and as you read the reference materials for last week, you found a number of reasons. We'll go through a few as guide, but there are many more. First, we do literature review to prevent duplication of work that has already been done. You don't want to do a proposal or research and you find that actually somebody else had already done that research. So we want to make sure we do not duplicate, we do not reinvent the wheel. Once we establish what others have learned and reported, then we'll be able to refine our statement of the problem. Literature review also helps the researchers familiarize themselves with various types of methodology that might be used in the study. You may have found that previous studies used quantitative methods, for example, but you'd want to go and further understand the phenomena. So you may want to go and do a bit of qualitative research in the same area or vice versa. Literature review also helps provide convincing reasons as to why the particular research is needed. It also ensures that no important variable that has been found in the past is lost or is ignored when we are looking at the impact of the research. So, a good literature survey ensures that all important variables that are likely to influence the problem are not left out of the study. And then it helps have a clear understanding of what variables are most important to consider, why those variables should be considered, and why and how they should be investigated to solve the problem. A good literature survey also ensures that the problem statement can be made with precision and clarity, and we can be able to have the stability and replicability of the findings of the current research. We also want to ensure that the problem investigated is perceived by the scientific community as relevant and significant. And one does not reinvent the wheel. I think we've said that over and over again, that we should not waste efforts trying to discover something that has already been done. So how do we go about conducting literature review? We have a number of steps which we'll mention them, and then we'll go through each in a bit more details. So the first step is to identify the various published and unpublished materials available on the topic of interest, and then we gain access to them. Note, we have both published and unpublished materials. Number 2, we want to gather the relevant information, either going through the necessary materials in the library, or we may go through them online. And then we want to write up the literature review. So let's look at step number 1. How do we identify the relevant sources? Previously, and in previous other generations, in our times, you literally need to walk to the library, manually search in the library. We used to have a physical catalog at the entrance of the library, and it was arranged in a systematic way, and you would have to find what you're interested in. There'd be a librarian there to guide you, and I think that has quite changed. It is still there. If you walk to a library, the medical library, you'll be able to see a physical catalog. So currently we have a lot of online systems which assist us in locating relevant materials. And we have an advantage of online systems in that they save a lot of time. They're comprehensive in listing. You're likely to find more. And finding them is relatively inexpensive, maybe just apart from the little data. Not little, it could be a lot for a student, the data costs. So what are some of the possible databases or relevant sources of information? We'll start with the simplest, which is bibliographic databases. Every time you read an article or scientific publication, at the last page, often, there's a list of all the references or the materials which the researcher used to synthesize to write up their work. That last picture has a number of citations and references. Usually it's called bibliographic databases, and it has details which are presented. Often than not, you find the name of the author, the title of the article, the book of periodicals which were referred to, the source of that publication, the year it was done, the volume, and the page numbers. Now, that information, which is provided as a list of references, will guide you into identifying other articles which you can review in relation to your area of interest. Let's use an example. I love artificial intelligence. Suppose you wanted to look at artificial intelligence in gynecological cancer. If you went online and searched for any article which is talking about that, you may come across that. And that is basically the title or the title page of an article on artificial intelligence in gynecological cancers, current and future challenges. It was a systematic review. So I wanted to know what other researchers have done in the area. I'll probably go to the last page, the bibliographic page or the reference page of that paper. This is just a small extract on it, and from that you can be able to see different papers in the same area which have been used to synthesize and have this write-up. So I'll go and find out all these, read more about them, search which papers are more relevant to my area, and read further. So that is a bibliographical database, and you find many available online. Okay. So the other databases available is the abstract databases. In addition to the bibliographic information, abstract databases have a little bit more information in that they provide an abstract or summary of the article. An example of an online abstract database is Pubmed, which is basically summarized or has a collection of abstracts in medical research. Now, that is one thing we'll be able to utilize, or we'll be utilizing a lot in our course. And I want us to remember the topic we talked, or the title we looked about on artificial intelligence and gynecological cancer. If you went to PubMed and looked at a few of, or key in a few of those keywords, artificial intelligence, gynecological cancer, you'll be able to get a number of abstracts listed in that website, PubMed. The abstract, so we have a number. I just cut a bit out of the results. You can see we had like 94 articles, so part of page 1 looks like that. These articles have been published since 1992 to 2002. It is possible to define which years you want to look at. Maybe you wanted to look at 2015 to 2022, then you'll be able to slide that to the years you want to focus on. So if you clicked on any of those articles or any of these links, it's going to give you a slightly more detailed bit, and it will give you an abstract which looks like that. That's an article which was published in 2020 in Anti-Cancer Research by Akazawa and Kazunori. So it gives you a summary. What you are able to see, what was the background or aim of the research, what was the methods used, what were the results, what were the conclusion, and then you can be able to get keywords. So in most PubMed articles, you'll be able to find that abstract databases. The final form of databases you want to look at is the full text databases. So apart from what you find in bibliographic databases and abstract databases, full text databases actually mean that you have the full article. You have access to the full article. So you have the bibliographic information, you have the abstract, and you have the full article. And there are many which you'll be able to find. Now, PubMed at times can be able to give you some of the articles in full, but there are many other search engines you can use to get the full text. So this, what I'm presenting now, is just the title of the page. On artificial intelligence, we have the abstract on the left-hand side. There are many other pages in between, but the end of that document will have the bibliographic database or the list of abstracts, which you can use to find more information on your topic of interest. And in our case, it's artificial intelligence in gynecological cancer. Okay, so let's take a pause after that and ask ourselves, so we have all these databases, how do I extract the information I need? Okay, so the second step in literature review is extracting the relevant information. So in a simple way, one of the easiest ways to see the information you need is just to have a glance at the title, and you'll be able to see whether it is indicative of your pertinent area or it's periphery to the same. And of course, if it's something which is close to what you're interested in, you read further. If you think it is not very close, then you may disregard the same. Then from there, you're able to know which information to read further, print out, save, and then you'll be able to prepare an index card or a computer entry for each article to help us organize the information. Many years ago, we used to use a physical card, which used to write, call it index card, and you'd arrange those cards later in a logical way and use them to do your write-up. Currently, we have many other ways to organize the information. As we shall see, technology has made it much easier. So initially, what was that? What was the content of the index card? Would have a quotation or citation. Well, quotation or citation mean we have the whole of details of the author and the year, and then we'd have the keywords of the article, and then we'd have a summary of the content of that book chapter you've read or the article, and basically you'd concentrate more on the information which was relevant to your study. And then you'd have a brief analysis of the content with comments such as the problem that was researched, was the method appropriate in terms of sample size, the data collection method, the sample size calculation, etc. Then ask yourself how important were the findings to your current study and how information would be used to assist you in writing up your proposal. Now, that information would then be conveniently organized such that you can easily find all data you needed for your report. For example, if you read 5 articles which defined your problem or your interest, what is artificial intelligence? You found author B, C, J, and then as you're reading, you found the advantages of artificial intelligence, or you found the challenges. So you'd write all those cards, and then when you're writing up, you'd write them in a logical way. For example, all the cards which talked about pathophysiology of gynecological cancers, then you probably look at all the cards which looked at a definition of artificial intelligence, then you arrange all the cards which look at use of artificial intelligence, gynecological cancer, etc. And so you use those cards, arrange them in a logical or cogent way so that they made a reasonable story. Of course, that is a bit old practice, but currently we have a bit more technologically advanced ways of doing the same. So how are we able to do that? Even when we use manual index cards or computerized index cards, we still use to organize information in a cogent manner. One of the reasons, or one of the methods we use to organize that is the same concept used in our problem identification. So we use the PICO and finer criteria. So would be able to refine the search terms using PICO, and then you'd be able to tell which search agents to use. Let me state, as the bare minimum, if you don't have access to any other search agents, the bare minimum you can use is Google Scholar. It is free. There's a collection of wide publications, and you can be able to use key search words to ensure that you limit what you're looking at. You can even be able to determine the scope of areas you want to focus on. Then we have Pubmed, which is free. We have others which are paid up and will be able to send you to the librarian who will be able to give you passwords to access to all those search agents which the university has subscribed to. So let's try and use that let's have a working example using the PICO or PICO. Today we wanted to focus on the effectiveness, or we want to ask what is the effectiveness of e-health interventions in enhancing knowledge and uptake of cervical cancer screening among women of reproductive age in Africa. Of course, that is a very wide topic, and we'll probably be looking at it in terms of literature review write-up. If you're interested in looking at the same in a country, in a region, or making the research more visible, then you know how to focus on the specific geographical area. So what is our population here? We'll be looking at women of reproductive age in Africa, basically 15 to 45 years. And then what intervention are we interested in? E-health. What is the control or comparison group? Maybe compare with women who have not received information on cervical cancer using electronic health. And then the outcome will be able to measure the knowledge levels in the two groups and the uptake of cervical cancer screening in the two groups. The duration, basically you'd be able to define the duration of your time or study time. Maybe you want to focus on the years between last 5 years. That would be 2017 to 2022, or whatever period of time you're interested in. So in such terms, how would we go about identifying what keywords to put into the search engines and how to find the same? So that PICO helped us in identifying the keywords to use to search for literature. And a keyword is basically a phrase which is used to facilitate online search. More often than not, we want to use the most obvious word, but we also need to be able to think of other alternative words. For example, if you're looking at e-health, we may also decide to look at cell phones, mobile phones, mobile health, so that we ensure we do not leave out any relevant studies out. When we are looking at keywords, we don't have to use the action verbs. Remember, we said when looking objectives, we said we needed the action verbs. When you're doing the search, you do not use those action verbs because they will not yield much and you will not be able to assist really. So let's look at, we mentioned a few such sites or databases: Pubmed, Google Scholar, Medline, Scopus, and many others. We'll work with Pubmed for purposes of learning today. While we'll not be able to go to every detail on how to use Pubmed during this lecture, please use that link provided on the slide and view a video on how to use Pubmed to build a literature search. It's pretty quite explanatory, and you guys are tech savvy, so you should be able to catch up with it. But the most important thing is you need to practice. And so how will we extract the information we find in those databases? And how will you be able to use the information you've extracted to write up your proposal? There are numerous guides and tools which are available online, but for the easiest method, and which we really need you to at least have competency in, will you focus on a simple Excel sheet for data collection. Remember the content we mentioned on index card. You can actually be able to extract the same information but using an Excel sheet. So this is an example of something we did. We were looking at gaming, serious gaming and simulation in clinical teaching. And if you look at that slide, you can be able to create that at a similar table in Excell. So we have the reference, that is the author's name, and the title, and this you can be able to generate using the Zotero or Medley. And then we have the aim of the study. So you review and decide this study looked at 1, 2, 3, and then you want to look at the type of variables which were included, the target group, the intervention, the outcome, the significant findings, the study population, the sample size. You could be able to include the age if need be. For us, we're interested in training, so we were looking at the length of training, and then how was data analyzed. Then you're going to have a comment on your general checkup or take out of that article, and how you could note how you want to use it in your study. That's pretty easy to generate, so that at a glance you'll be able to see what literature is available and what is the general take. So once you have been able to extract the data using Excel, then you want to write up the review. So how do we write up the literature review? Remember, when we do literature survey or review, we are interested in bringing together all the relevant information in a cogent or logical manner. We are not interested in presenting studies in a chronological order with bits and pieces of uncoordinated information. It should build a story, not just a logical story, but also an interesting story, which should be able to make sense and fascinate your reader. So we don't just write a literature review for the sake of it. Remember, we have all the reasons why we need to do literature review, but basically it should be able to lead you to a good problem statement. So we wanted to organize the information in index cards or groups of related statements, especially when you're using the extraction sheet, and you want them in according to the aspect of the research problem they touch on. So if they're looking at prevalence or epidemiology of a specific issue, for example, you group them together or you arrange them together. Remember, an article could cover a number of aspects. It could probably look at epidemiology, it could be able to look at the challenges, it could be able to look at enablers, it could be able to look at definitions. So at times, an article could play different roles in the write-up. It is still okay to organize the information as long as it makes sense. Then decide which order you want to discuss the various issues. Remember, building a cogent, reasonable story. And then you write a coherent discussion of a few pages in your own words using relevant references. Remember, we mentioned that when you are doing citation, you need to synthesize information and write the same using your own words to avoid plagiarism. So it also comes back here that we need to use your own words. So as we do literature review, are there things which could happen, which could make us not do the best of literature review? The answer is yes. And we'll be looking at possible bias in literature review. Now, bias in literature review is basically a distortion of the available information in such a way that it reflects opinions or conclusions that do not actually represent the real situation. So how could that happen, or what are some of those bias? We've mentioned a few possible ones. One possible bias in literature review is playing down controversies and differences in one's own results. So you may have done a review and found that artificial intelligence may actually not be useful. But because in your mind you are interested in just looking at artificial intelligence and seeing it is useful, then you just want to focus on those studies which just support your opinion that it's wrong. And that is a very serious bias in literature review. At times, you may draw far-reaching conclusions from very shaky research or preliminary research, and we generalize based on just one small study or just one case. You remember when we are extracting information, one of the things we are very keen about is methodology used in the literature or in the study and the population size. So we want to make sure we do not draw conclusions from small studies. You can include the same studies in your literature review and just say, I studied done this by this and this author stated this, but then we don't have to generalize it to the whole of the population. And that is why in our extraction sheet we included limitations of the study. So to avoid bias and to bring it to perspective, what do we need to do? How can we ensure that we do not have bias in our literature review? We can do that in looking at ethical considerations in literature review. Why is it so important that we deal with bias? One, the bias would easily put the scientific integrity of the responsible researcher in question. We do not want to have careless presentation interpretation of data, because our research is used to make serious decisions and policies. You can imagine if we presented information carelessly and somebody went ahead and used the information to develop a policy, what could happen? We'd end up doing more harm to the same population we're trying to help. So remember also, there are serious consequences in terms of money, time, and that may lead to wrong decisions affecting population health. There's also legal issues. You can easily be taken to court for presenting the research from other writers, one, without acknowledging the source, but without quoting. People have been taken to court, people have paid, others have had their licenses withdrawn, and there are consequences of academic theft, we may call it that. So how do we know whether we've done good literature review? And we want to just mention a few things on how to critique the literature review. You'll be able to do this in details later as you come for your masters, but for now, we want to ask ourselves, is the literature review thorough? Does it include all or most of the studies conducted in the topic? Is it recent? We always try to restrict the search to a maximum of 5 to 6 years if you want something recent. And if it is not an area which is very well researched in, or you probably want to look at the historical development of something, then you can go to earlier studies. But usually 5 to 6 years is good. Having said that, we want us to go and practice. I keep saying we need to practice. Research is practice-based. You cannot do research theoretically. So I want you to do the following assignment in groups. Be able to discuss with the class rep, or be able to share with the class rep, the group members. So I want you to go and outline a topic of which you need to search information on or to do literature review on. That's a group. Then I want you to list the sources of information you can use for your review. In groups, I want you to develop search terms. Of course, that will be based on the key concept you're interested in the research topic. Then search the same information from Pubmed. You may use Google Scholar if need be, but for now, I want us to be able to demonstrate that we can be able to combine the search terms in Pubmed. So in your write-up, you'll mention this is how we search. We said concept A plus or, and you can actually cut those words and paste them in answering that question form. And then I want you to develop a data extraction template using Excel and extract information from at least 8 articles. Okay. Then out of those minimum 8 articles, I want you to prepare a maximum of 3-page literature review on the topic. 2-3 pages are okay. And to be able to then after that, you develop a conceptual framework based on your review. In the next lecture, we will talk about conceptual framework, so you'll be able to use the 2 lectures to combine to do this assignment. And then we'll develop operational definitions of the dependent variable and at least 3 dependent variables. And then we'll present a list of references as an annex using Harvard referencing system. You can utilize Zotero or Medley as the management software, reference management software. Then we'll see how it goes. Once more, remember we're available for consultations, and let's look forward. I'm looking forward to see what you submit as part of your assignment. Thank you and have a good day.